Hi, and welcome to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm Ange McCabe, CEO and co-founder of Intuitive Performance. I'm a performance coach, HR professional, whole person leadership facilitator, and your host. The Human Side of Business podcast is fueled by the genuine curiosity to understand how personal characteristics and skills can be leveraged to drive individual and team performance, tangible outcomes, and ultimately organizational success within business. Each podcast is devoted to sharing knowledge, expanding our learning edges, and exploring the trends in corporate culture towards growing the emotional intelligence of organizations. I'm so glad you're here. Hi there, this is Ange McCabe, CEO and co-founder of Intuitive Performance, where our business is the success of your business. I'm a performance coach, HR professional, facilitator, and your co-host along with Scott Rust of the Elevate Business Podcast. The Elevate Business Podcast is a journey of discovery fueled by curiosity to genuinely understand what makes people tick when it comes to their professional path, choices made, and the personal characteristics that drive performance, tangible outcomes, and ultimately success. The Elevate Business Podcast is here to promote the enormous contribution of small and medium-sized businesses around the world by exploring the actions that make a workplace successful, the trends in corporate culture towards growing the emotional intelligence of an organization, and how we build whole person leaders from the ground up. Each podcast is devoted to sharing knowledge, growing our learning edges, and honoring our passions with a special guest who has elevated their businesses, overcome obstacles, and inspires others to do the same. So glad you're here. Hi, and a warm welcome to the Elevate Business Podcast. Both myself, Ange McCabe, and Scott Russ are your hosts. We have the pleasure of introducing you to Edwin Frondozo, an international keynote speaker, award-winning podcaster, technology entrepreneur, and top advisor. Edwin is co-founder and CEO of Slingshot VoIP, telecommunications network. He is well known for finding the intersection where people, business, and innovation meet. Edwin is also actively involved in the Canadian startup ecosystem as a key leader at Startup Canada, providing mentorship and advisory services to businesses of all stages. Welcome, Edwin.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, likewise. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, your role, and your journey.
Wow, that's how much time do we have? Wow.
Maybe Cole's notes.
Cole's notes. Well, the first off, the Cole's notes about me, and I like the way I like to describe it, especially when we're talking about, performance, leadership, or people. I like to start off that I'm a 5-year-old father, 7-year-old husband, 16-year-old entrepreneur, and 45-year-old man. I could probably age myself for many different passions I have in my life, but it gives those who are listening and yourselves a sort of picture of who I am, and maybe that's how it shapes up some of my answers. Mm-hmm. My business, Slingshot, we're a telecommunications service provider. We provide business phone services to businesses across U.S. and Canada. So everything from phone numbers, toll-free numbers, call center applications, IVR greetings. So making most businesses professional. The journey with that is I've been in telecom for a long time. I'm a lot younger than most people think, but I started my career in a global company, probably Canada's one most global company back then, Nortel Networks. There was probably 100,000 employees when I was there. And I stayed in telecom because probably it was my upbringing, my comfort level. I knew it. That was my specialty. And I was always passionate about technology, being a computer engineer, and telecom, just because it's communications, it connects people. And the underlying internet that we see today is actually technology that Nortel Networks brought to the world. And many, if not little Canadians, know that anymore. What else? Journey? I think that was the last question. My journey?
Yes.
I mean, where do I start? But the journey has been, I'm on my journey. I love my journey. It's definitely ups and downs. And, depending on where we want to talk about journey, there's entrepreneurship, there's leadership, management, relationships. personal.
We can really dive in.
Yeah, we could go left, right, center. Let's have a blast.
We're going to get this party started.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to focus things in a little more, or to help you focus things in a little more, Edwin, if we're looking more at that entrepreneurial journey. And I recognize, you're co-founder of Slingshot. You're leading the team as CEO. How did that kind of come about and form, and what does that look like today?
So today we're still a fairly small team. We bootstrapped the business. The Slingshot brand itself is I think we're celebrating the 10-year anniversary now. Okay. But like I mentioned at the top, I've been in telecom a long time. So I was that industry expert. I had a know-how. And not only was I working at Nortel at the beginning of my career, before I became an entrepreneur, I was working for a small telecommunications consulting organization where I was a young sales executive, I guess, or it was my first outside sales role, learning how to hone in my, I guess, early sales skills, because I didn't have much sales training at that time, and really understanding features and benefits and learning what, the pains and the challenges that stakeholders in small to medium-sized enterprises did. At the same time, when the internet was growing and technologies like voice over IP was coming, that's where that opportunity came. We've been doing with my business partner who's out of New York. We've been working together on and off for about 15 years until we decided to launch the Slingshot brand. So where we are today, before COVID hit, we were bringing in a partner, someone who has the sales savviness, because that was something that we missed. So, as an entrepreneur, sometimes an ongoing story is, you can't do everything. You got to bring people in. Either you got to hire people who are better than you or have strategic partnerships. So that was one of the big turning points in the last 2 years, bringing someone with that caliber of experience, growing a small team to growth, and which is almost impossible to find, someone who did it for a competitor that got acquired. So it was a really good, timely introduction that I received. There's a story in terms of how I got that introduction, if you guys are interested. But at that time, I was contemplating bootstrapping any business, let alone a tech business that has a lot of infrastructure and upkeep, and it could get daunting. And I was in a point in my life where I'm like, is this worth it? Right? Like, this is tough. And I was starting to think about legacy work, impact work. I started having a lot of people in my entrepreneurship world around me that were consultants, coaches, people who really help people, and not to be so meta, elevate themselves and their businesses, right? So I was in awe. I'm like, wow, this is great. I mean, my business is good, but I don't see that impact. I don't get that instant gratification that I help someone move their life forward. So I was in this crossroads, and I was thinking about quitting the business, exiting it, or selling out. And but before doing so, I had some friends and colleagues who were like, oh, you should really think about this. Maybe you should talk to people in your network. So I had this little small campaign for myself. I work around challenges, and I'm like, I'm going to have 100 conversations. I'm going to go into my network. I'm going to tell people what I'm thinking and get their thoughts. And it was eye-opening, right? People start opening up to you. I started getting introduced to investors, competitors. I spoke to billionaires. It's nuts. And then ultimately, a friend of mine was like, oh, Edwin, you should actually talk to this guy. And then I'm like, before that campaign, I was like half the foot out, like, oh, I got to leave. And now I'm like, oh, first off, we weren't ready to sell. Like we haven't built it anywhere up to that. It was just my own emotions. But that got to the introduction to our current VP of sales.
That's fantastic. And it's an eye opener too, from an entrepreneurial perspective, because we can oftentimes put ourselves in that own box of being in a silo, and we're not. There's a huge network of people out there that we can certainly lean into, and using your point, Edwin, to problem solve. So that's an amazing story to hear. And it's, I guess, a testament to resiliency, right? And questioning our own emotions and where we're going with that. Can you tell us a little bit more as to what type of leader that you've become?
Ooh, I haven't thought about this question in a while. I do believe inspirational leader, but someone who gets down to the ground and really watch and help and let people in, empower them right away. Like I just onboarded 2 new people in this last month, and maybe from my experience with podcasting and doing a lot of streaming and videos, I just have no hesitation to like do a video, and if they have a question, I'll literally use a tool called Loom, where I could just capture my screen and has my video, and they'll ask me a question, and literally 3 minutes later I will send them the video. Okay, this is what I did. Here you go. And then let's save this for later for the next hire. Awesome. Yeah, I'm still in that, because we're still a small team. I have to come, from the job role to the leadership role, and I got to still be comfortable with that. As much as I already understand that I'm looking to exit all these roles now. Like that was my mindset shift probably about a year and a half ago, where it's like, okay, I can't be sitting in the business. It's so funny. I've heard that. I've read that. I've interviewed people who say that. And until you really understand what that means and feel it and make the decision, right? It's just something to say. It's just something to hear. And well, yeah, I'm in the business, but like, as an entrepreneur, and you may be listening, if you're listening today, you may feel like it's impossible not to do the job. Like no one will do it as good as me. No one loves in the business like me, or whatever story we're telling ourselves. It's stopping us from growth and being a leader, right? Especially if you hire someone and you don't empower them or trust them, period. And partly that's trusting yourself to let go. So it's being, that's the type of leader I am. It's not easy. It took a long time. It takes a long time to let go, I think. Yeah.
There's so many things that are coming up for me right now, but one that I'm really interested in hearing from a leadership perspective is, what was that switch? What was that switch from you reading, hearing, and talking about, quote unquote, letting go in leadership to kind of parachute yourself into the CEO actual role?
It was, I know the exact date. It's so crazy, actually. Last year, and COVID, like everyone had, gave us opportunities, whether you took it or not, to really evaluate who you are, what you do, and why you do things, right? And for entrepreneurs, there was a buzzword at the time when COVID happened. We couldn't just sit still. We were like, I got to pivot. How can I help? Do you remember that? Like that was a huge thing in the entrepreneurship world, like March, April, like when it hit in Canada, first lockdown, we are all scared. But the people who are entrepreneurs or sit with that type of personality is like, how could I help?
Right.
What can I do to help? So I took that opportunity. I did many things at that time, with my podcast. I partnered with one national organization with leaders, and, we did a small campaign about, what's the shift to this digital. And I just advised on like a big tech startup, because my business slowed down, right? Literally it like went to a halt. So I actually took that. And at the same time, I worked with a coach, because I was still, even though that I brought in someone into my business, I think I still had this uneasy feeling of, what am I doing with my life? Or who am I? Or what is this all for? Right. And it turned out that I really, really identify as a polymath, or someone who has multiple passions. I love doing many things. And if I'm not doing many things, I'm bored. And that showed up a lot throughout my life, through high school, elementary, that my teachers always told my parents, Edwin is a smart kid, although he seems bored and unchallenged. Luckily for me, I went to computer engineering, and now I'm taking 6 new courses every 4 months that included 30 hours that included extra lab time, right? And I was pretty social still. I would go to the parties and stuff. And to my surprise, I like A+ all of university. It was crazy. And I barely passed in high school. And then I left university, went to the workforce, and now I'm just doing one job. And if you could imagine, it was like sucking the life out of me. So getting laid off by Nortel was sort of it was a blessing in disguise, because that was the first time I dabbled as an entrepreneur, but I was still pretty young. I got a pretty good walking ticket. Like I think it was more, but I always say it was a year's salary. So imagine being 24 years old, year's salary, living at home. Come on.
I'm set for the next 5 years. Like what?
Right.
Yeah, there's no urgency here. There's no urgency.
Oh.
Yeah, so I picked entrepreneurship. So I don't want to go down that story. That pinpoint was last year when I realized this is who I am. Even though the world and peers and advisors all tell me, Edwin, I decided I'm going to embrace this. This is who I am. Yeah, I have a tech business. I have a podcast. And maybe I made excuses or reasons why I were doing them in the past, but I do them because I love doing them. But there was a specific day where it was just like things were going up and down still last year, right, for me. And I was still always going back and reflecting and wondering, well, what is this all for? And a friend of mine challenged me. He's like, Edwin, you do so many things. And here's the funny part. Why don't you just do one thing? So imagine, I just realized I'm this multi-passionate polymath. This is what I love to do. And a good friend of mine is like, and he's a high performance coach. He's like, why don't you just do one thing? So I'm like, I must have been like in an emotional pit at that time. And he also shared with me an audacious goal, because goals, goals are like, not goals. He shared with me an audacious goal of making X amount of dollars in 100 days. And it was audacious. It was like it was like 35 million in 100 days. And I was just like, you are nuts. Tell me more. Right. And then we went into conversations about success and mindset. And, we don't go there. And, for me, and the best way I can explain it is if I'm an avid Raptor fan. I've been watching NBA basketball since they came in 95. But if you look at like a professional basketball player, success is not linear. It's actually, you have no money and then you get drafted 3 million. And then you have no money. You're at 3 million. You're at a plateau. And then all of a sudden there's a cliff. If you're good, 10 million or 30 million. Like there's no gradual to 30 million. It's a mindset. It's a dedication. It's a discipline to know that this is who you are and what you did that. So when I was challenged, Edwin, so what are you going to do if you focus? I actually made a audacious challenge to myself that changed my life. I said, you know what? I'm going to 100x my life. I'm going to 100x my business in 100 days, because this guy like inspired me. I'm like, and why I said 100 at the time was we all have vision boards, right? And which is a powerful exercise. And if you're listening, if you've never done a vision board, check it out. But one part of the extension of the vision board is, what's the cost of your vision board? What's the cost of your dream life, right? Which is another interesting exercise, because you may be pleasantly surprised. It's actually reachable, or you're kind of nuts. But what's the cost to uphold that lifestyle? And what do you need if things go down? I did that, and it ended up being that I would have to 100x my business to allow Slingshot just to pay me. So I made that decision. I'm going to do that. And September 22nd. So this is literally time of this recording. I don't know when this will air. This is September 23rd today. September 22nd, 2020. Sorry, my bad. I made an audacious goal. I announced it on YouTube, on social. I said, my name is Edwin. I'm going to 100x my business in 100 days. And this is why. And something shifted in me fully. Putting out this goal, making a declaration, it was insane. And I had to fight a lot of fears and self-doubt before I was able to do that. But that was the turning point. I have the exact date. And I launched a new project on September 22nd, 2021, that basically, and the reason I chose it was my 1 year anniversary of declaring that, which shifted me and my mindset. I didn't 100x my business in 100 days, but what I say is I 100x my mindset, and it's like I am 100x, because there was a lot of self-talk, doing daily videos and sharing this thing. What I realized is I was doing affirmations,
right,
and really believing it, and it became conviction.
And how do you lend that conviction, the tenacity, the problem solving, the leadership, and the human skills is what we call it, side of things, to your teams?
I think I just started showing up differently, honestly. I don't think I work harder or lead harder, but I have this overall goal now, this vision, this 100x mindset, or this 100x game that I'm playing personally. And for me to be or realize some of these goals or all these goals is I have to elevate myself. And for me to elevate myself, I have to elevate the people around me. And I have to empower them and give them the tools, and don't even hesitate. Like, of course, I'm not just going to out of the blue just give something that they asked for, but I think, in reflection, it wasn't like a huge, this mindset shit seems huge, but the things that are changing is not huge, but I think it's the way I show up now. And I think it's, what's the word right now? It just catches on. People feel it and they see it and they believe it. And as a leader, you become more inspirational. People believe you. It's not, you're not just a boss telling people what to do, but if you sharing your vision, people know that they're more than just the job that they're in. They're like, oh, there's something bigger than this. There's doing this. And, the culture is changing slowly too, because I think what I did as a decision, and this all came personally. I didn't do this because of the business. I did this because of me, which was very interesting.
It is, because oftentimes when we look at the proverbial kind of textbooks or the knowledge leaders around strategy and business, it's all about, you lead based on your objectives. You lead based on your strategy. You tie your objectives to your departments and to your individual teams. Whereas you've kind of stepped outside of that box and said, well, no, hold on, wait, this is my vision for me, and I'm pushing myself, but hey, it matches with my group, with my team as well.
Well, and I'm not going to take away from the quarterly goals or the department goals, because they're still there. But when you understand who you are, the core of who you are and what drives you, I think all the details and all the goals get positively affected because of that. Because now you know the essence of you. And you don't have to have any job or any activity or anything that you do define you, because you already defined yourself. Right? You can't label me as Edwin, you're a marathon runner. That's all you are. You're not, like, I know who I am, and I like to build businesses. I like to advise businesses. And I know that. That's why it's just like, being an entrepreneur, it's great. It's like you get to learn the role, and every role is different in every company. Like, you could know the essence, but, really letting go as a leader and understanding that I only know 50%, but me knowing 50% of each job description is probably better than a lot, right? And then you're able to upsell. But I don't know if I went to left field now, but I'll bring it back.
No, Edwin, I think there is a lot of interesting thoughts around that, in terms of even just that self-reflection piece and understanding your own essence as a leader and as a person, how it relates. And we see it time and again. So many entrepreneurs, it's, well, I'm the CEO of this business, or I'm the co-founder of this business, and that's part of their identity. But it seems that, upon reflection, you're able to kind of separate that identity piece from the business and really be able to better understand yourself, which then in the end, actually helped elevate the business that much further.
Yeah. And, taking away from these self labels, it also allows you to remember and see yourself in your teams, in your team members. Not everyone could see or feel what you're seeing and feeling. Mm-hmm. As good of a communicator as you are, they don't have that history of you or the experiences and the things that you have. So you have to always remind yourself, and this is why I will always go down and do it with them. Okay, let's do it together. Why don't we do this together? I'll take time. I always take, these are 5-minute times, especially with Zoom and what all these sharing collaborative tools. It's even almost easier than when we were in offices, right? Because I would have to go over, look over your desk, and it's kind of uncomfortable. I'm not taking it away. I like the in-person work, but I'm just saying that, as a leader, we have to make these times, especially if you're building and growing a team that's distributed, right? We all, even us as leaders, we must feel alone every now and then. So imagine it's amplified for the people working for you, and you don't even reach out to them for 3 days.
Right.
Right. Even if it's just like, hey, how was your weekend? Oh, that does so much for your people.
Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit more, because it sounds to me like remote working was done before it was quote unquote cool with your group. How do you manage that, or how do you set the example and the tone for consistent communication and connections?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. For me, we use Slack right now. Mm-hmm. But the essence of our company is a communications company, so we do provide telecom. Setting the tone is not always being available, but like our stand-up meetings are in the morning, so we know what things are, and I don't expect anyone to work after 5, right? And setting those type of things. And when you set it with your team, make sure you set it for yourself. because you could say that all day to your team and say, listen, you guys don't have to work for 5. And all of a sudden I'm still working on Slack and messaging, oh, don't do this. So I'm setting the bar already, like, oh, wait, Edwin's working, then I'm going to work still too. And it happens. Like if I'm still working and I sort of message something, people will be like, oh, maybe that's the culture. I got to do this, even though there's no expectation to do it. So when it comes to remote working, is whatever culture you want to create, make sure that you're also doing it for yourself. And if you are working after the 5, maybe don't communicate it. Don't send the email. Like do the delayed email for 8 a.m. Like do that favor. I mean, it's an extra step. I get it. But it's such a confusing world, right? Because you don't understand these little nuances that we do by sending emails at 8 p.m. Imagine you're sitting watching Netflix and your boss, the CEO or the founders, like emails you at 8 p.m. Like you get the little heart. You're like, oh, am I supposed to answer this? Damn it. Put this on airplane mode. Right? Like you got to put yourself in their shoes. Like they're just trying to relax, and they just started in the company 3 months ago. And then all of a sudden I get an email about, it doesn't have to even be urgent. It could be nothing. But you're like, maybe I got to reply to this. It's from the main guy. It's from the main girl. Like,
yeah. So
yeah. So when it comes to remote working, I think it's respecting boundaries and also for yourself. I think it's just healthy because, if you're showing up as an overworked executive or founder, I think everyone thinks that's normal.
Right.
I feel like we can almost have a follow-up episode just on this topic alone, Edwin.
Oh my gosh.
But being respectful of your time here as well, we always like to ask our guests, kind of coming to a close, what are 3 words of inspiration that you would want the world to hear?
Ooh, 3 words. That's putting me on the spot.
We're a little lenient, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Times,
So is it 3 words? Well, so I always end a lot of my videos, and it's actually 3 words. I always say, do your best. Anything you do, I posted something today because I did a launch, and it was about the fact that you only get one launch. Whether you have a new business, a new service product, new podcast, we only get one chance to celebrate the launch of something new. And, I did pretty good. I've done many launches and the team was pretty good, but there were still hiccups. But I could sleep at night, and I slept really well last night. that I know I did my best, right? Because there's going to be this underlying, only you, the person implementing, the person doing, and the leader leading, only you know if you did your best. So as long as you do your best, you're going to sleep well at night. You're not going to regret the things that you're doing. And it may be not enough. It may not be hitting the goals, but you know you did your best, and you're going to get the feedback to understand how to get better, or how to lead, or what to do differently. So that's my words of inspiration. Do your best.
That's
I should actually put a sign here now. You guys inspired me.
What are the letter glow up signs? That would be lovely.
Oh, that'd be sick. I think next time you guys have me on video, I'll have it.
Fantastic. We're gonna hold you to it. Accountability.
I'm down.
We're coaches.
I'm down.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going on the air too.
It's a challenge now, Edwin. A challenge.
I love it.
We really appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and also appreciation for sharing your entrepreneurial insights with Intuitive Performance and our subscribers. For those who would like to learn more about Slingshot VoIP, we're going to provide a link to the company profile on the Elevate Business Podcast title page. Take good care. Thanks for listening to the Elevate Business Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the program. You can subscribe to future podcasts at intuitiveperformance.com, where you can also sign up for webinars and learn more about professional coaching and our facilitation solutions available to help fire up your whole person performance skills and drive actions for success. Until next time, stay true to you and take care of each other. We are all better together. Thanks for listening to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm glad you could join us. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated with our latest content, make sure to visit our website. The link can be found in the episode description, where you can subscribe to the podcast, sign up for our newsletter, and learn more about our whole person leadership services. Sounds interesting? Explore the Whole Person Leadership Cohort by Intuitive Performance, a unique program that offers unparalleled support to managers on every step of their leadership journey. Our program features evidence-based assessments, workbooks, group coaching, and interactive learning experiences to help you level up your leadership skills. Reach out today to apply to one of our upcoming cohorts. Until next time, take care and stay curious.